Welcome, 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 everyone. Welcome, welcome to High Vibrational Events Presents Awakening with Meagan Michael. My very special guest today is shamanic practitioner Sarina Michaels. Note the similarities in our names. Welcome, Sarina.
Not an accident.
Not an accident. You know, we're excited to talk with you all about transformation. There are some topics that we've already discussed. Well, we want to talk about religion. But we both feel that this is going to. Hi, Kimmy. Hello. Thank you so much for sharing. Feel free to share it out, everybody. Yes. We also feel like it's going to expand. We know. And Trixie. Okay. And my cat Trixie wants to say hello. She's totally right here.
Hi, Trixie.
Her pretty little face. She's going to keep on wiggling if I don't do it. So, okay. Hello now. But I'm really excited about this, Sarina, because I know that this is going to be a beautiful and expansive show. Spirit's been bringing Trixie, please, honey. My cat. Spirit's been bringing things to my awareness. New symptoms of ascension and different things. And anyway, let me just throw it out there and start. Let me start off. Well. Hi, Linda. So glad.
Hi, Linda.
I want to now. Can you see the comment on the screen, Sarina?
They're too small for me to see.
Okay, well that's
I'm
Kimmy.
so sorry. I'm using my iPhone.
No problem. Kimmy says hello, sharing. And Linda Ernest says, so excited to see you both. Loving light and warmest of hugs.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Kimmy.
Thank you. So if you guys have any questions, please feel free to share those with us. How I want to start out, Sarina, I'm drawn to. Okay, so I know you had a very a deep religious background back in the day.
Yes, that's true.
So I thought perhaps you could tell us, because you're a shamanic practitioner, and I see you're all love and light. And when I first found out about your background, I was so in awe of how you have transformed. And I feel like on this topic of transformation, if you want to share a bit about how you've transformed on that part of your journey, or wherever you want to take that, and I know we'll expand from there.
Well, transformation is a very big part of my lexicon. It's simply so huge that it's difficult even to put it all into one conversation or even into words. The difference between me now and me even 15 years ago. What happened to me very simply was that I was in a formal religion for 40 years. And within that religion, which, by the way, I was taken into by an experience where my living room filled up with light.
Wow.
And I was suicidally depressed at the time, in my late 20s.
Okay.
And I was crying out for help to whoever might be listening. I had no real faith of any kind. Mm-hmm. And the room filled up with light, and I was surrounded in love. I mean, no one said anything. No one told me to do anything. There was simply this sense of incredible, incredible love. So my response to that in 1978, it's a long time ago, was to go to church, because that was my background as a child. And I didn't know anything else to do. I just thought, well, I've had this, quote, religious experience. I know I'm not crazy. That really happened. So absolutely. I better get to church, you know. And that began a 40-year experience, much of which was very positive.
Okay.
I met lots of loving people. I loved liturgy. I loved prayer ministry. I loved the visions that I had. Hello, everyone.
Hi, it's Heather.
Hi, Heather. Loved having a kind of a formal way to express myself.
Okay.
I worked my way up in the church into leadership. I led prayer ministry, and I led retreats, and I did I was on the board of elders in our church, and, it was a serious, heavy duty Christian experience. Now, when I say Christian, there's all kinds of Christians, all flavors.
Yes.
So I would never by any way or means want to criticize anyone who is in a Christian church or in any formal religion if it's meeting your needs.
Yes, well said.
So that's how it started for me. Around about the age of 58, I guess, it was around my late 50s, I was doing Bible study one day, and I heard Jesus, who was a very close, and now I understand, a spiritual guide, one of my spirit team.
Okay.
And I now know him as Jesus Sananda, the Ascended Master.
Okay.
But at the time, I thought everybody talked to Jesus. I didn't know that was unusual. I didn't know that I was a channeler. I didn't know that I had some psychic ability. I didn't know any of that. But I heard him say to me one day, "That doesn't mean that. That's not what I said."
Oh.
And I was,
ooh,
what? Get thee behind me, Satan. That must be some other voice. I'm not going to listen to that.
I understand. I probably would have thought the same thing.
Well, when you've been in a formal, dogmatic, extremely devout religion for 40 years,
that's a long time.
You have, in a sense, now I say this with all due respect to anyone else for your own journey, but in my journey, I had given away my power. Yeah. All right, so my power as an individual, my power to discern and understand spiritual things, I had given away. I only listened to what the church said was true. Whatever those people in authority that I had, and the God who I was separate from. And by the way, that's how I interpreted the whole experience of God was a being who I was separate from.
Right? Was something out there somewhere. Yes. And then you were this I'm using my own words here, worthless being, this human, and always, bowing to this God externally. And that, I think that's how many religions.
Well, I think it's unfortunate, but I think it's true that there's a default in the human psyche. Okay. It's probably thousands of years old that wants to bend the knee and worship. Yeah. And perhaps that came about through thousands of years of serfdom and slavery and all kinds of socioeconomic situations where people were put into fear and under control of the powerful few. Yes. And it just became habituated within the human race to take orders, so to speak, to do what you're told. And that had translated in my religious experience too. I wasn't thinking for myself. I wasn't experiencing spirituality in the sense that I was having profound understanding for myself. I was looking to the Bible to tell me what to believe, and I was looking to the church dogma. Yeah. So when this voice began telling me, and by the way, I'd been having dreams and visions for years, which were challenging me. One time I had a vision when I was just in prayer. I was taken over by a vision where I was literally cast forth by Jesus in this vision. He carried me down a river and kind of threw me over a cliff. Okay. And I'm like, what the heck is this all about? And then I was in the midst of a dark, luminous, powerful, like being inside a womb, like being inside the womb of God, where I could feel all the love and the power of the creator, of the great spirit, as I now would say, and the healing power and the love of me and all of humanity and all of creation was just pulsing all around me. There was no guy on a throne. There was no, this understanding that we had been given of a separation was not there. And that really challenged me. And when I came back from that was about 25 years ago. I just put it aside. I thought, I don't know what it means. I don't understand it. It doesn't go along with what I believe. So when I want to say about transformation is that it doesn't happen overnight. it can be a long, long process. And as we begin to open ourselves up, huge things happen. Now, when Jesus eventually got through to me, he began interrupting my Bible study quite frequently over the next 2 or 3 years.
Oh, wow.
And teaching me, which led me, by the way, to get books out of the library and research how the Bible was put together and how it was written, because I wasn't
Can you share like an example of that?
Oh my gosh, cool. It's so long ago.
If you can think of just like even, if not, that's okay too. But if you can think
Let me see if he will bring something back to me about what he told me.
Okay. And if not, then
something just popped in.
Oh, I knew you
when he said, one of the scriptures we were taught is that the kingdom of God is within you.
Within you, yes.
Well, I never gave that a second thought. I just had an understanding of it as a Christian, that it meant that when I invited Jesus into my heart and I was saved, no longer would I go to hell.
Right.
Is a construct, in my opinion, not a real place.
Not a real place.
Inviting Jesus, this is what you're taught, will save you, and then you can go to heaven, because that's why he died on the cross for us.
Right.
So when he began to show me that the kingdom of God is within you, had a totally different meaning. It was the fact that we are one with spirit, and everything that we need to know is within us. We don't need to be looking to an outside authority to tell us what is real and what is true. This was very upsetting. I have to say, when you go through a paradigm shift of such magnitude,
yes,
and I think anyone who's watching can relate to this. You
share this to your group.
It's difficult. I mean, I spent a couple of years resisting. I finally left the church because I could no longer embrace the teaching.
Wow.
And my entire life had been in the church, and my entire social network. So walking away from that took an incredible amount of courage.
It did.
And I ended up losing my marriage in the midst of that as well, because we just could not. It was like two ships passing in the night. So, when I talk about transformation, I always couple it with the word courage, because
I like that.
There's no other way to do it unless you are brave.
I completely understand. I'll share a bit. So I was born Jewish, but we were Reformed Jews, and so that meant we weren't religious. So even though we had relatives that were not well, we had one that was extremely Orthodox, but that was she converted to that because my family was mostly like conservative. They called them conservative Jews, whatever. Anyway, but my parents were they were Reformed, and we, whatever. So I went to yeshiva for a year in second grade. That was more because my mom, I think, needed to send me to a private school that year for her own health reasons. And so, but I loved it. But it wasn't. I always felt like Jesus was part of my life. I remember saying that. I remember we had a Hanukkah bush because I said I really want to have a Christmas tree. Now granted, I was a little child, and part of that was gifts. But it wasn't. It was more than that. It was really more than that. I always knew. So then, as I grew up, I didn't feel drawn to Judaism, and although I have a great love for the people and for the language, I loved Hebrew. Oh my God, yeah, and the history, but it wasn't something that I was drawn to. And then so after that, I studied Wicca for a while, and white magic, but then they talked about. It was a polytheistic religion, and I was in my brain. I was very focused on there's one God. Honestly, I still believe there's only this one creator, but I feel like that one is many. But I didn't look at it back then. I was very limited in my beliefs, and so it didn't sit with me that they had like a god and a goddess. So I never like. That I was very young, and I was like 20 or something like that. I started doing like astral traveling when I was like 13, and making plants grow with energy, also in like 12 or 13. So I was growing up, but and evolving, but not. And then I got into Buddhism for a short time, which I love, but I didn't understand. It was all chanting at the time. There was no, I didn't learn a thing at the time. Now I know more about Buddhism than I did when I was in the Buddhist temple getting bopped on the head with a thing and in a ceremony. I didn't understand a word because none of it was in English. It was in Colorado. But I liked the energy, but that particular one felt cult-like to me. It was kind of rigid. So later on, but I liked now, of course, I love all religions. There's something about all of them that resonate with me. But then I got into Christianity, and that's where I really found like what I thought was my answer. Now I was already, how old was I? When did I, like 35, something like that? I mean, I had transformed my life in other ways. I had lost 70 pounds. I had gone from being a suicidally depressed couch potato to a healthy bodybuilder who eats really clean. And then I started going to church, and I found myself where I had been like offended by the pressure that this woman at work would constantly try to like beat me over the head with this Bible. But finally, I felt drawn to go. And so I finally accepted this woman's offer, and we went, and then I got saved, and that how that goes. But the it didn't last long. The love affair didn't last long because immediately they said you can't be gay, you can't have sex outside of marriage. So they're like, come as you are, but don't be yourself. Don't be yourself. You can come in any clothes that you want, is what they were saying. As long, but you might get some stares from the other people if your shirt is a little bit tight or a little low cut or something, but you can show up. You know what I mean? Basically, it was like, come in here. It was an interesting situation. I love the music, and the music itself is really what sold me.
Music's fantastic.
On going to church, it was the music. And the fact that it was always a positive message in the music. Mm-hmm. Now that I've carried through to my now reality as well, of course, and my personal relationship with Jesus, because that's when I got to know Jesus, but I developed my own relationship with him then, because I knew right away that it wasn't going to work I couldn't do it their way, because they don't believe in things that I believe in the core of my being, things that I believe in that are right. So I'm not saying they're right, but to me,
can I interject something here?
Oh, yeah, please.
Mm-hmm. What happened? The understanding that I came to was that I was in a very shame-based teaching. I was caught in a web of shame.
Yeah.
I had to change. I had to be a certain way. I had to evangelize. I had to bring people in. I was surrounded by loving people and a very loving priest.
Okay.
No criticism. Mm-hmm. But the dogma of the church itself, which has been handed down through history, I believe, has brought it into a kind of a performance orientation, shame-based, spiritual reality. You never feel good enough on the ins. You're trying to show everybody that you're good enough, and then if you do it, admit and confess that you can't meet the standard, and people are saying to you, but Jesus should be enough for you. Don't take medicine for your mental illness. This was my experience. You don't need medicine. All you need is Jesus. These sorts of things make you feel, you end up feeling like a failure. And so you're constantly struggling to grow closer and closer. And meanwhile, there's this loving presence all around you all the time saying, no, you don't need to do that. No, you're not going to go to hell because you have a problem with depression. It was just, for me, it was just the right thing to do, to walk away. And I think there are people caught in all kinds of religious practices that have become ritualistic and are not living for them. If you're doing practices that don't live and breathe for you, that don't bring you into joy and happiness and connection with spirit, then you've got to stop and take a step back and say, what's going on here?
Right. Yeah. I agree. Wow. It's hard for me to even fathom 40 years with those teachings, because it took me several years to deprogram myself.
I'm still in the process.
The few years that I was there, that it was, and the pastor that was that was so charismatic, the one that was very, very, very popular at the time. I'm not. He wasn't who he appeared to be, to the point where they. I don't even know what the word is for it. They just erased him completely from the
Right.
church's history or anything. You can't even find it. He did some things. He
Well,
wasn't.
no one's
He wasn't who he
perfect,
said
but
he
they
was.
put you into this situation where you're expected to be.
I can understand that. I can understand that. I mean, it would be hard for anybody. He was a Las Vegas promoter before he was a
Yeah.
pastor. He talked about that,
Yeah.
which I always thought that doesn't sound quite right. But I was a newbie there, and everybody else was like, "Oh, he's so wonderful," and so. But he was charismatic.
Again, it's the giving away of your power
Yeah.
to someone in authority. And you can see this in all formal religions, where you are expected to, in a sense, take on board whatever the person in authority is saying as a representative of God the Father. Or God, who is usually a masculine identity. Now, when you get into other religions, which, for instance, and if you move over into paganism and Wicca and some other religions, I call them religions because they have formulas, they have
Yeah.
ceremony, they have gods and goddesses, and
Yeah.
again, it's the binding of yourself to those powers and giving away your own power. This was such a huge process for me to come to understand that I was completely a sovereign in myself, and that I am part of the whole of creation, and that we are all joined together energetically. This was a huge process, where God is not male or female. I don't even use the word God anymore, because to me it's a word inside a little box, and everybody has the box that means whatever it means to them. So I like the word, source, or a great spirit, or the unnameable one, or there is a center of creation that, and
Yes.
everything has come out of that. The universal consciousness is another way to put it.
I want to read some of the. Did you want to finish something?
Sure.
Okay. I want to read some of the comments that we have. I also feel very drawn to take a turn here. Both of us have mentioned mental illness, depression, stuff like that.
Okay.
I don't know that we've ever spoken about that.
No, I don't think we have. You
Would you
probably
like
don't
to?
know my history.
I don't have any idea. I don't think you know mine either. I think most people don't. I might have dropped pieces of it here and there, and I may not share it all tonight either, but I may. So if you're drawn to go there, I'm interested to go there, because that's a huge transformation. I mean, it was for me anyway, because that, where like you had 40 years of in the church, I had like 40 years of a big label on my head, and me buying into my
The
label.
reason
I called
I
it
went
my own
into the church
Oh,
was because of that experience I had in my living room,
okay.
which I had because I was suicidal, and
Okay.
had been since I was about 5 years old. So
Okay.
I consider the fact that I'm alive
Not now, but yeah,
as a
yeah.
testament to
Mhm.
the strength of my own character.
Absolutely. I love what you're saying. That's since you were 5.
No
I
one saved me, to
no.
be perfectly honest. I saved myself.
That's exact. Nobody really can save
That's
us.
right.
We can
And
only
and
save
no one can make you happy. And I mean, you can get medicine, you can get therapy. I did all of that, and I recommend all of that. But
Okay. I'm not sure I do, but I honor that you do. I honor that people should do whatever they feel
yes,
drawn to do. But I also don't feel anybody needs to. I mean, and I shouldn't speak for anybody else, but I know that I gave away like many years of my life, um, by allowing a label to define me, and buying into that label, and then spending my life with this label, and medications that went with the label, and doctors to coincide with the label, and a lifestyle that coincided with the label. I believed like I was this, because I didn't know who the hell I was, and I couldn't connect with anybody, and I wasn't connected to people in my own family. I wasn't feel except my dad. He when he left when I was 23, that was like when I'm like, take me with you. Don't you leave me here behind, because I don't know. I don't feel resonant with anybody else on the planet. And so that really became my identity for a long time. So I honor anybody who's there, but I also want to invite everybody to question that. And is that really who you are? Because
It's
I
part
really
of it's part of the transformation. See,
yes, yes.
if the pain is so great that you can barely function, sometimes it's helpful to talk about it and to have a little medicine. But that doesn't mean you need to stay that in that paradigm.
Well, a lot of times, I mean, maybe it's changing now because I haven't been to like a psychiatrist in years. But I remember specifically what that I had. There was a psychiatrist that I had who, on his, it said on his plaque that he did hypnotherapy. I said, I'm very interested in that. He said, I can't do that with you. Your insurance doesn't cover it.
Well,
Not,
that's the
not even
Western,
kidding.
that's the American world we live in.
So my insurance wouldn't cover anything healthy, right? Like that. Um, and it would only it was really crazy. It was like the insurance, so it was the label, but then it wasn't even the doctors. They didn't really have control. And not only that, but then they told me anyway, and I'm sure they've told a few others with that same label that there's no cure for it. No cure. You'll never get any better. You might
I
have
was
a
never
reprieve.
told that.
Oh, see, I was told there's no cure. I was labeled bipolar. I wasn't labeled
Okay.
depressed. So they said there's no cure for that. It's a chemical imbalance in the brain, which is horseshit because there's no proof of that. I learned much later. But I think it's fascinating
Well,
because
let me
I
just
believed it.
say,
So because I believed it, that was my truth for a long time. I
let
do
me
not
just
believe
say
that.
that that was all part of your transformation going
Oh
through
yeah,
that.
of course.
And that for people that are in the midst of that or in the midst of any kind of transformation, the shamanic view is that everything is our teacher. So if you have gone through tremendous difficulty in your life and suffered and struggled, it's been part of the life lesson that you chose. Now, part of
Yeah.
my transformation was was the turning upside down of my spirituality.
Mm.
So when I came out of that background, to have everything turned upside down, who am I? Where am I? What am I?
Why am I?
You know, why? I don't understand anything. I don't know anything. And
Right.
I just began having a blast. You know, I went to psychics, I went to UFO conventions, I went to, I read all the books, I studied ghosts. I'm like everything that I wasn't allowed to do as a Christian. I went to mediums. I've, just and gradually over a period of about 2 years, I began to settle. What really resonated with me was reincarnation and
Yeah.
choosing our lives and life lessons and soul families, traveling in soul families and working together in each timeline. I did some past life regressions and I did some in life between life sessions and some other things. And
Oh, that's cool. I
but
haven't done that with like
well,
anybody
I'll
guiding me
I'll I'll
through
take
it.
that offline with you and tell you about that another time. But
Cool.
the
Yeah,
main thing for me, and the main thing that happens with any transformation, is that you find that you're being drawn in directions that you would never have thought of before. Like for me, it was shamanism. The spirit was very clearly leading me. I mean, when I first heard the direction to study and become involved in shamanism, I didn't even know what it meant. I had to go look it up. And then I thought, well, that sounds crazy, but it's just been the most rewarding, fulfilling. But it's, again, a 10-year journey I've been on.
I love it. I want to go back. We have a lot of comments, and they
Okay.
go back for a while. And so, and just so you guys know, like, Sarina is unable to see the comments that I'm posting on the screen, so I'm posting them for you guys and for me, and then I'm going to go back now and read them so Sarina knows what we're talking
All
about.
right. Thank you. Sorry, I can't see them.
Oh, that's all right. They're so small. I mean, and you're on a phone, a really nice phone, but it's a phone. Serena's like, I only have an iPhone 12. I'm like, oh, you poor thing. Poor thing. Oh my God. It's terrible. It's so tiny. The iPhones have I don't have an iPhone. I have an Android. I love my Android. But my friend Diane takes the pictures when we go on our adventures with her amazing iPhone, I don't know, 11 or whatever it is. And oh my God, the quality of the
Great
photos.
pictures. That's true. Great camera.
Yeah. I'm looking at the camera with you right now. You look amazing. So, okay. So Heather, okay, Kimmy says she shared all over. Thank you. I'm going back a bit. Okay. So Heather says, I see it as both now. The one is the many and the many is the one, referring to religion. Yep. Also Heather Graham. Hello, Heather. She goes, sang in the church choir as a child, I did connect with the music. It was something that helped to uplift me during a very difficult time.
Wonderful. Me too.
Me too.
In fact, part of my transformation process was grieving the loss of some powerful, powerful music, because I'm a very musical person. And I would go to things like Handel's Messiah and sing the entire Messiah at Christmas time. And to lose that and to feel like I couldn't be part of that anymore. I was sang in choirs my whole life. It was very hard.
Oh, okay. That must have been because I still listen to like contemporary, but it's not the same. You were part of it. That was part of your experience with
I
singing.
can listen to some of it now, and it has a different meaning for me, and it's just wonderful. But when I first left the church, I went through this whole thing and Jesus actually said to me about 5 years later, he said, hello, remember me? Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. It's like, that's what he said to me.
I literally got that same
he's a
message.
very powerful ascended master. He does not wish to be ignored.
Yeah, I never left Jesus behind personally. I just took him because it was only he and I anyway in the church. I
thought I had to. I thought it was part of leaving the church,
Okay, I can understand how that would feel like that.
It was very hard, painful.
Yeah, no, I'm sure. And like you're saying, all these things are lessons that we choose them. We choose them. I chose the whole thing with mental illness. I chose the thing I chose a lot of hard shit in this life.
Me too.
I know you did. I know you did, sister. I feel it. But we're old souls, and old souls. This is my own feeling of. But I feel like we get bored. Like we need more challenges. So we give ourselves really challenging lives to grow from, because we're like, we can do this. I'm a
thanks to my higher self,
right? I'm a cocky, confident soul. I can do this, And then, but I also feel like my next life is either going to be I'm going to be a spirit guide or I'm going on vacation. It's going to be a walk in the park.
Well, it's funny.
I wouldn't want to do 2 of these in a row. My God, even though I know all lives are concurrent, I know that, but I'm just saying.
I'm very drawn to work with angels as well.
Oh, awesome.
And part of my experience in my transformation was to say, who the heck are you? To Archangel Michael.
Okay.
Who are you? I thought you guys were part of the church. And, I just got a real understanding of angels as having dedicated themselves to this planet, but actually coming from a faraway place in the cosmos. And we have just deified them, but they're just really here to help.
And they don't have wings, even though we saw.
No, that's the artistic rendition.
I like that.
Yeah, I like it. I like it too. I love the big pictures of Michael with his big wings.
Right?
But I think what I was trying to say is that there's all kinds of journeys and all kinds of pathways.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And what we need to be careful to do is not to judge others, and to follow our own journey, and to be true to ourselves.
Yes.
And to be kind and loving. And as we do that, that's where I think we get into troubled waters, when we want other people to believe exactly what we believe.
I agree. I want to go to Linda's comment. She's saying medicine is a tool until something better comes along. This is going back to
yes.
And that resonates. That was a tool that I know I personally was told that I needed. So I believed that for a long time. I was trying to numb myself out. True, too. And I was just so much of it.
Well, if that's all you know, it can be that's very depressing to be told you have an incurable disease and the only thing you can do is take medicine, which makes your brain feel half dead. Mm-hmm. So, but I still say that was part of your learning process.
Oh yeah,
because you fought your way out of that, and look at you now.
I knew in 2013, I didn't know how or when or why or whatever, but I had this knowing that I was going to overcome that. I knew it. I didn't know the deets yet. And it got a lot harder after that, but it's okay, because I'll tell you what, getting to know myself is my biggest transformation. Getting to love myself is probably my greatest transformation. Knowing myself and loving myself and connecting myself with all that's high vibrational, God, whatever, God, source energy, Jesus, Buddha, Muhammad, the angel, whatever.
Absolutely.
This beautiful knowing, beautiful knowing has replaced my need to self-soothe with medicine or drugs or anything like that, which I did too, and all or sex or anything that I thought that I needed to food. Oh my God, to stuff in to try to drown and subdue any feelings. I didn't want any feelings. I remember one time I tried this one medication. I think it was called Seroquel. Believe it or not, I think they give that to animals now, which just makes me nauseous. But anyway, I had literally no emotions on it. I remember going to work. I could barely function. I don't know how I went to work at all, but I went to work and I had no feelings. And I was so happy about that because I didn't know I was feeling everybody's emotions. And I was a call center manager and I was a professional closer. And so not only did I feel the people on the phone, which is a lot of what helped me close them because I can connect with them psychically, but I didn't know that at the time. I just knew I was really good in sales. But I was also connecting with the other cutthroat managers, and they were, oh my God, it was, call centers.
Well, when you're an
All
empath and you don't know what that is, it's a process of discovery.
Yeah,
and not always easy. Right.
Finding out all those emotions weren't mine, and then I was just feeling everybody else's stuff, and so I was trying not to feel it, which makes perfect sense. But can you imagine if? Okay, and I'll tell you what, I have a friend who I want to. His name is Arthur. He is a semi-retired pharmacist, and he's going to be a guest on my show very soon. He said to me, and his quote is 50%, and this is his quote, 50% of the medications that are prescribed are unnecessary. And that's in general, not just psychiatric medications. 50%. And he wrote those prescriptions. I mean, he filled those prescriptions for over 40 years of his life. Over 50% are unnecessary. I want to read Heather's comment. I thought that was a pretty powerful statement. As soon as he said that, I knew I was going to have to talk to him publicly because, And so Heather says, in the home, I knew there was more growing up because we had meditation. Oh, that meditation circles. That's nice. Cool. Wow. And my mom would channel spirit through. Oh my God. That is so cool. She goes, some of the Catholic priests are aware of the truth, spiritual gifts. One priest told my mother they are taught about in seminary, but are not allowed to speak of it before congregations.
They're called the charisms.
Oh,
and
really?
I was in a church like that. I was a charismatic Episcopalian where we had the power of speaking in tongues, laying on of hands and healing, channeling. I used to channel messages from the Holy Spirit for the congregation. I had a lot of experience in the church that could immediately translate out into the world.
Wow. Yeah.
So I didn't have such a hard way to go as you did, because I was visionary and channeling spirit long before I left the church. And my hands would heat up and I was doing energy healing long before I left the church. So we had the understanding that all these gifts existed. They just were only allowed in the church. You weren't allowed to see that anyone outside the church could have them. And if you didn't fit the role model in the church, like you couldn't be gay and you couldn't be this or that or the other, there were very strong boundaries.
Yep.
You're just shutting out, more than 2/3 of the world. I can remember my 17-year-old daughter saying to me, I just can't do this anymore. She said, I can't be in a place that says all these people are going to hell and that it's up to me to go and save as many of them as I can. There's billions of them. She said, there's something wrong with this picture. And I was heartbroken at the time, because I just thought she doesn't understand. Well, she did. Actually, I was the one that didn't understand. But those gifts, you're right. Your mother and your priests were right, Heather. Those gifts have existed, but the church repressed them. There's a lot of history in the church of repression of women, repression of even in the beginning, Jesus taught about reincarnation, but I went and did a lot of research when I left the church. All that was repressed. They had women priests in the beginning and that was stopped, and all kinds of things were stopped by the patriarchy, and I don't want to confuse a bunch of men that made all these decisions with anything to do with spirit. Because they were imposing control on a medieval population that could not read, and
I know what you're saying. I hear what
you're saying. That's what they were doing. We inherited that in the church,
and now we're awake and we can all read, and women have more power because we've stood up for it and stepped into it. That's it.
Does anybody have any questions about transformation in general, and what it means to transform, what it means to have a paradigm shift, not just out of a religion, but out of any major way of life.
Okay, and I'm going to read what Teresa said. Teresa says it's the question of which comes first, the chicken or the egg. Conventional science views it as brain. Now, I believe we're talking about the bipolar thing that I mentioned earlier. Conventional science views it as the brain chemistry affecting moods, etc. A more holistic view is that it works both ways. I watched a documentary, and I don't know how I feel about the brain chemistry thing, because I watched a documentary with doctors and psychiatrists saying that they have no proof. So the scientists were saying that there was no proof. It's just something they say so that they can continue to add. I don't know. I don't know. I had my own experience there. And then when I learned that it didn't exist for me, that worked for me. that allowed me to take back my own power. I'm not saying my thought needs to be anybody else's, but it helped me to realize, wait a minute. So if I'm not some hopelessly lost, patient, right? That means I'm a sovereign being. I'm a sovereign being. I'm a healthy woman. I can do anything I want. I can be anything I want. I can create that reality for myself. Oh my God, that was scary, but it was my choice, and so
that's kind of why the bigger topic of transformation for me is extremely interesting, because it's not just coming from a church background, but from any background that has tromped you down or caused you to feel as if you have no power. How do in the midst of that come into the understanding that we are all one? Where does that knowledge come from? And how is it that how do we experience that individually, that transforms us so completely from any of our past experiences?
Great question. Kimmy is saying, I thought the same, Sarina. I was happy when I figured out Jesus is still with me. Okay, so now we're getting caught up with some of the, we're still behind. Let me just say, so Teresa says the wings are symbolic. Oh, but the angels, but on some level, they are literal as well. We too have wings, just not on this plane and dimension. That resonates with me.
All right.
That resonates, because I often feel them. I remember when I first started meditating, I would feel these wings coming out of my scapula. Is that what they're called? The blades back there? Like, I felt them. And I'm like, okay, spirit. I was just open, I was just open, and then I felt it. And I never, but what you're saying makes sense. I never did think about it too hard. I just know what I felt.
I don't worry about it. I have felt those wings too over the years.
Really? Okay,
I have felt them surrounding me and comforting me with wings. I think they come to us in whatever way we need.
I love that. I love what you're saying. Therese says, fortunately, the world is becoming more open now about such things. There's still a long way to go. But people are starting to understand what's really happening. Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. This is a beautiful time that we're living in, that we chose to live in. And people like all of us that are here right now have chosen to be here going through these huge transformations in this time, to be the way showers. And there's a lot of us, but to be, we all do it in our own way. Some of us are live streaming. Some of us are, working in a business or a store. And a lot of us are caregivers. And I say us, I'm not a caregiver. But did you know, Sarina, that all three of my beautiful admins that Spirit had me choose at different times throughout the last bunch of years, and I was called to everyone, all of them, Kimmy, Therese, and Heather, they're all caregivers.
I was a caregiver for 2 years.
You too? Okay.
After I retired from my corporate job. And, it was one of the most rewarding things I ever did.
Like Teresa and I were talking earlier, and she said something about, I'm going to paraphrase, like a special kind of person to do that. And I agree. I think but I also feel like that's part of the lessons, like you were talking about.
Part of transformation for me is learning to let all the things go that you've been angry about and hostile about and frustrated about and sad about, and let it go out of your brain, out of being in control of you, and fill yourself with gratitude and fill yourself with a positive way of being. And it's a process. It takes time, but it's part of a major transformation for me.
Did you have childhood things to let go of, or?
girl.
Yeah,
40 years I worked on it. 40 years I
I hear
worked
you.
on it. And even up until my 60s, and I'm in my 70s, for those of you that don't know, up until my early 60s, I was struggling to let go. You know, how do you heal trauma? This is why I was drawn into shamanism, because there's such beautiful ways to do shamanic. I do a lot of shamanic journeying, and there's just beautiful ways to get in touch with trauma and to heal it in the
Really?
generations for yourself and for your children.
I would love to know more about that too. I know that I've had to let go of, um, well, so when I first was waking up back in 2012, when I started my life over again, and I left behind I didn't really have any friends at that point, but any family, friends, whatever. And I moved to a new place I'd never been. I've talked about this on live streams before. So then I was in this place where, hang on, what was my point, Spirit? Oh yeah, where I didn't understand what had happened to me, and that's also when I stopped taking any psych meds. That was I literally didn't have a doctor in my new location. I didn't have insurance that I didn't carry over in the new part of the state. The whole thing, it was just to me it felt complicated and messy, and it was a challenge. But I thought I'm going to run out, and that's just all that's going to happen. I'm just not going to have any choice there, and that is what happened. But I also was waking up. I was not meant to be on that medication indefinitely. So then all of a sudden I realized, oh, wait a minute. So why did I keep marrying the same person over and over? I mean, different face, different everything, different religions, different age, different everything, except the same kind of person. And I did it a bunch of times. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute. They were narcissistic. Oh, okay, wait a minute. So that means I didn't realize it yet, but I was playing the victim. But wait a minute, where'd that all come from? Oh my God, I literally dropped to my knees the day that I realized my mother was the first controlling narcissist in my life. I don't use the label now unless I'm trying to explain something like this. So that was a huge awakening for me. And then I had to process all of that. And my mom was already in her late 80s. Yeah, not her 90s yet, but she was in her late 80s, and so I struggled with, what if I don't talk to her anymore and then she croaks? Well, I didn't call it croaking back then, but now I do, because Abraham does, and it works for me. But because nobody ever dies, and so I went through this healing process, getting past. But it really, I don't know. I mean, I did sever the connection for like a year or so, because I needed to do that to find myself. But in that,
Taking care of yourself.
yeah, but then I also started incorporating, or once I found some boundaries, I found out what a boundary was and how to have one and what matters to me, and I started loving myself. Then I was able to have a relationship with her from a whole new perspective. And then then I stopped looking at her as this person that was like always like that our whole lives, and just my mom. I love my mother.
Oh, I have such a deep
I would hang up
affection for
on
my
her
parents
if I had
now.
to. If she was starting to like say nasty things, I would say, I'm going to hang up now. Okay, now. But I just had to share that because I didn't take anything from her anymore, and that's what helped to change. Sorry, you were saying?
Oh, I was just agreeing with you. I have a very deep affection for my parents now, but I spent most of my adult life away from them.
Okay.
Because I had not been given any coping skills, and I did not know how to forgive them.
Okay.
And it was, the church talks a lot about forgiveness, but they don't teach you how to let go of the trauma of the things that have affected you in your life. So when I say that it requires courage to transform yourself, to go on a completely different path. I even left my marriage of 40 years. And moved across country, left the East Coast and moved to the West Coast, and just with very little money, I left all of that. I lost my entire social network. I think when we're talking about waking up and transformation, the joy that you feel as you begin to get stabilized on your own 2 feet with an understanding that you are part of this huge thing, and that you are not alone, and that you're not dependent upon some God off in the distance, who might or might not notice you, but depending upon your behavior, it's just it's a mighty, mighty thing. But it does take courage because a lot of times you're doing it alone. Your family doesn't understand. Your friends don't understand. I mean, my friends were like trying to cast demons out of me at the time. I just laugh about it now.
I can
I
understand.
would have been the same way 10 years earlier, talking about spirit guides and all this stuff that I was talking about. They just thought I'd lost my mind. So, I just want to say to any of you, all of you probably here have gone through transformation. You know what we're talking about.
Absolutely. Linda says cutting cords too. Sarina did one for me. It was beautiful.
Oh, thank you. I've had a lot of cords removed, hooks taken out of me.
Wow.
Spears and knives pulled out of me.
Therese says healthy boundaries are essential in every relationship. Amen to that.
That's right.
Yes. Heather says, I learned a lot from my mom, but also had a lot of contrast with her growing up. It was very, very difficult for me. Yeah, I'm sorry. I understand from my own perspective, obviously.
Me too.
But that my mom was, we were always at odds. My father and I got along great, but I didn't see him that often. He worked a lot. Probably kept his sanity that way. My mom was so controlling, but I didn't realize for a long time that I wasn't asked for my opinion. And if I had an opinion and it didn't agree with my mom's opinion, then I was wrong, and that I was my mom was a beautiful professional. Well, she was a professional songwriter, but she blocked herself from doing more with her work, but she was very talented. But I was also very creative musically. And then I would start to like write a song and she would say, oh, that's so beautiful. The next thing I knew, she came in and she finished it. She would hear me play it. And then the next day I should say, oh, look, listen to this. I finished your song. And that really just like, I'm like, I don't want to play anymore. I don't even want to write. I can't, or one time as a piano teacher, and I just feel drawn because shit happens, these things that we go through in life that help us to transform. My mom was a piano teacher, and I was practicing one day, like she taught all her students to practice, right? But I was making mistakes. I was just learning. It was the entertainer. And I was making mistakes while I was practicing. She came in and she slammed the window. She goes, the neighbors might think that's me playing. So I didn't play piano for 2 years. So, but it's, and I remember when I was first realizing all these things and I went through it in my head and I'm like, gosh, I could have done this and I could have done that if she hadn't, whatever. But all of it is us. All of it, there's no blame and shame. Blame and shame doesn't do anybody any good. There's no growth in blame at all. It's when we start being accountable for ourselves and know that we're creating this reality for ourselves, and we can create a different reality, even a different past, but we have to change our thoughts and our beliefs. Do you see it that way as well, Sarina?
What I see is that I lost my train of thought. Maybe I wasn't meant to say whatever it was. But what I do understand is that we are the creators of our own happiness.
Yes, we are.
And that when we allow others to control us, we have to take steps to let go. Being angry and hostile, which I was for most of my life, is not the answer. And coming to the understanding that everything is our teacher and that my parents did the best they could wasn't good enough. I did the best I could, wasn't good enough. Mm-hmm. But as human beings, we're here interacting with each other, learning how to become more loving and compassionate. For me, that is the entire story that I'm wanting to come forth with is, am I more loving and compassionate than I was a year ago? And I want to become more and more loving and compassionate. And that means I don't judge. And I see that everyone's on their own journey, and some of those journeys are extremely broken and filled with pain.
I love you. Bye-bye. Sorry.
So I just think that we all have to cut each other some slack and just be as loving as we can, and be that light. I remember Michael saying to me one time, Archangel Michael said to me, because I was so encased in that shame-based mentality, performance orientation. You're not doing enough. You have to do more. You have to do more. Whatever you're doing isn't good enough. That's kind of how I was my whole life. just to come to the understanding that he said to me, if you never did another thing until the day you transition, you're doing exactly what you came here to do, which is anchor light into the planet. And I thought, oh, what a beautiful understanding of what a human being living in a state of gratitude, in a state of positivity, is anchoring light into the planet, and that's mostly when you just need to learn to love ourselves, and then it will flow out to others.
That's what you just, the last thing you said is the base, the foundation of everything that I believe.
Yeah, me
it really
too.
is, because I can't love anybody if I don't love myself. How can I love you? If I don't accept myself, how can I accept anybody else? So when I find myself, and I do, I don't say I don't find, but I notice sometimes that I may, instead of discerning, maybe I'm judging, and I'll immediately catch it usually, and I'm like, okay, I just judged. Okay. And then I have to bring it inward. I have to rein it in. I'm like, okay, so I just judged that person for what? Okay, obviously it's something that's going on within me that I've got to take a look at because I just saw it in them. And,
yeah, we have to do the shadow work. We have to look in the mirror, and we have to see ourselves, and because I don't think we're ever perfect. I mean, our spirit is perfect, but the humanness that we're living, and we're here to live a full human life.
Yes,
I think doing spiritual bypassing can be a big problem. Thinking I have to be spiritual all the time, and therefore I'm not dealing with the human side of things. You have to do both.
I've heard of spiritual bypassing, and I've gotten the impression at times that maybe some people feel like that's what I teach. And I don't care what other people think. I know for myself that I've had to go through so much shit, and I do not choose to think about it all the time. So I don't teach that. And I agree with you. You have to, like, just awareness, and then become aware of it so you can release it. But then once you release it, you can
move on.
That's
exactly right.
Like, I had a YouTube channel with 150,000 viewers in 1 year. I mean, and if it was all about narcissistic abuse, and I think in like 2019. Or 2019 or 20, I took down all the videos. I hid them all. And that was a huge body of work, but it didn't resonate with who I was anymore. And I knew the people that were responding to the videos that I had made were commenting to the person that was in the video, and I'm not that person anymore. And I didn't want to have those conversations. And if I did respond, it would have sounded cold to them, because I wasn't going to say you poor thing anymore.
That's a beautiful thing you did.
Oh, well, thanks. It was a thing. In what way? How do you perceive that?
You were. The world judges us by how successful we are, and you had a successful thing going with all those videos and all the responses, and you could have carried on, but you didn't feel able to do that anymore. So you took the body of the work down. I see that as a beautiful thing.
Thank you.
Because that was a thing of integrity.
Thank you. The first video, I had over 17,000 views, and the second one had over 15. They didn't all go that way, because I started digging into. I started using it more like a therapist. Like, YouTube was my therapist, and I was just telling my shit to the whole wide world.
Why not? If it was helping you,
it was, and it did.
When I
met others that were going through that too, and we all had channels at the time doing that same thing.
When I was diagnosed with cancer 4 years ago, and during the time that I was in treatment, I built shaman sayings. Some of you will be aware of shaman sayings, up to 90,000 followers.
Wow, that's a lot.
And then there was a niche that somehow I just fell into, and whatever content I was providing was just attracting people. And then it was hacked and taken away from me, and I was devastated. I went to Spirit and said, look at what has happened to me. Poor me. Why has this happened? I don't understand, and again, I'm coming back to the shamanic view, which is that everything is your teacher. I had the choice there to become bitter and angry and hostile and sad and stay that way. Or I had the choice to let it go, which is basically what Spirit showed me to do. Like they were showing you to let go of all the narcissistic teaching. They were encouraging me to just let it go. It had accomplished its purpose, and now it was taking too much of my time, so that I could not focus on the next things that I was being called into. So that was a powerful revelation to me.
Wow.
You know, we have to be always willing to let go of even the big things as we move on in our transformation process.
That's so true. I love that you didn't sit there and feel sorry for
Oh,
yourself.
I did.
Oh, you
But
did.
for about
All
a month.
right.
For about a month, I did. I tried and tried to get Facebook to help me to get it back, but you know, that didn't, nothing happened there. So I gave up. But some of you, like Kimmy, came from shaman sayings. My relationships began with shaman sayings and came over into other venues that I'm working in now. So I'm glad that happened.
I love it. I've learned to okay, so when it was with the YouTube channel, and yes, it was successful, and it would have been extremely successful. I was doing it at a time when nobody was really talking about narcissistic mothers. You were hard pressed to find content on that topic, and that's all I wanted to talk about at the time. But I would have had to compromise myself. I wasn't willing to do that. I just found myself. So and I also know, I have also learned to trust spirit. Like there was a point in like 2019, I had like 4,000 followers on High Vibrational Mastery on Facebook. We have 3,000 in our group right now. But I was looking at the numbers, and then Facebook. Facebook can be Facebooky sometimes, and all of a sudden, all my stuff was gone, and that traumatized me. I mean, well, I can't say that. It inspired me to feel traumatized. It was something else I needed to learn from, and I did. But I also know now that it isn't the amount of people that hear the message, because one person understanding gaining something, growing from being inspired by something that I've said or you've said, they can go on to inspire millions of people.
Oh my gosh, one person at a time.
Yes.
That's it. It's
raising
the ripple
the
in the
vibration
pond.
of the planet.
The ripple in the pond. Well, I always say, I mean, what has come from my whole life's understanding of spirit now is the understanding that each person is precious, and that each person can affect and does affect the entire consciousness of the planet. So
yes.
How do we want to affect that consciousness? Do we want to affect it in a positive way, or do we want to affect it in a way that pulls down the vibration? So that's our choice, you know.
Exactly. I want to mention, because you said 5 years ago you were diagnosed with cancer.
I had the surgery 4 years ago, last October. Just a little over 4 years.
Okay. So because I'm pretty sure I've told you, and most of you know, but I also had cancer, and that was something.
Yes.
After I got through the narcissistic abuse stuff, and I have my new life, and then the next thing I knew, I'm like, I had that, and I'm like, oh, what do I do now? Now I'm alone in this new place. But then I thought about it, and I'm like, well, the people that I knew from before, they wouldn't have been by my side. In fact,
I learned so much from the cancer.
Right? Wasn't it?
I would be in the radiation chamber, and I would be thanking all my spirit team for being with me in the radiation chamber. And I would thank the medicine, which was a poison that they were pouring into me.
Yeah.
But I would thank the medicine for coming into me with grace and ease and doing only what it was meant to do. What I have learned is that everything has spirit. We're not inanimate. Rocks, plants, trees,
that I know.
Medicine, germs, everything, your house, your marriage contract, whatever, everything has spirit. And so when you honor spirit, and I just feel as if I learned a lot about how to be thankful in the midst of extreme distress through that cancer, and to let it teach me things. So, yeah. I don't know why I said all that, but
I'm so glad you did.
It just popped out.
No, I'm really glad you did, because
that's part of the transformation of recognizing that you're not a separate being.
That's right.
From spirits. Everything is spirit, and we are all one in spirit. I love that.
I love that too. You know, I've been, from the time I was a child, if I bumped into it, I still do it. If I bump into a table, I apologize to it. Or so, I don't want to hurt anything. I never did. And I always felt that everything had emotion and feeling. And of course, as a child, you're told that's not true. But I've always known it did. I've always known that everything.
Wow, that's pretty awesome.
So
I didn't know that.
Oh, I was a really enlightened, awakened child.
I would say so.
And then I was shut down. But I always knew. I was always, oh yeah, I knew. In fact, when I came in I feel like John just shared this. I used to do these. I used to go visit my cloud friend, and then I taught my friend how to do that. Basically, I was meditating. I don't know what I was doing. I played this game that I made up called Fairy. I didn't know. I don't know how I. Obviously, that had some inspiration for that because I was just a kid, and I taught it to only one friend, and I only played it with one friend who was a long someone I've we're not friends anymore. But I'm saying we were great. She was a great teacher for me for 40 years.
Well, I think it's wonderful, in spite of the pain and struggle of your childhood, that you were somehow open to spirit in a way that so many of us did not experience. I mean, for me, I just remember wanting to die and staying in my room all the time and not being in touch with anything.
Wow.
So I just think that's wonderful. I love hearing stories like that where children see fairies and, have conversation with trees and, understand things as a child because they're so gifted.
I had this other thing, Sarina, and I don't think I ever told you guys. That I remember saying to myself, I remember. I would give myself things that I will remember up until the time I think I was like 7 years old, and now I forgot why I wanted to remember. But after a while, I was still remembering. I'm like, I'm going to remember this. Like I'm sitting on the swings one day. Okay, I'm going to remember this. I remember this, and then I would ask myself these questions. Well, what if there was no God? Okay, well, but what if there was no universe? And I would go
Wow.
out, and until I couldn't think anymore. My brain couldn't, well, what if there was no God, no universe? What is there? I know now that I came in here with those plans. What I didn't want to forget was everything. Who I really am, why I'm really here. I'm sure, knowing my stubborn, strong spirit, I'm like, I'm not going to forget. That veil of forgetfulness isn't going to affect me. I've got ideas. And spirit's like, that's not really going to work that way. Oh no, it'll work for me. Watch. But then, if I had not been interrupted and I don't want to think I'm not trying to say I had a bad childhood. I didn't have a bad childhood. In a lot of ways, I had a great childhood, but I had a very overbearing mother. So emotionally, it was trauma. It was challenging, but it was a great childhood in other ways, and I'm very grateful for all of it now. You were going to say?
For sure.
It's amazing how much we learn and we grow. And look at the major teachers in our lives that we're talking about. Things that how many people could get like stuck in with a diagnosis like cancer and let that take them out, or get stuck in in a religious mindset and not allow themselves to out of that box, or
I don't, I'm constantly amazed by my own life, that I spent 62 years in suicidal depression.
That's a long time.
That was behind closed doors. And out in the church, I was this bright, shiny prayer minister, leader, but it was all a facade.
Wow.
And so part of when I talk about waking up and I talk about transformation, it's major, major, major. And what I want to say to people is it's possible. You don't have to live the rest of your life like that.
Yes.
But it takes courage and it takes listening here and here to understand how spirit is guiding you. And it just takes time. You have to be patient and loving with yourself, and I tell you, the teachers come, when you're ready. The teacher, I mean, I know that's like a meme now. when the student is ready, the teacher appears.
Yeah, but the teacher doesn't always look like Louise Hay. The teacher,
no, and
look
often
like cancer.
the teacher is
like,
not what we want.
Yeah, a lot of times. Yeah, unfortunately, that's true.
So all I'm saying is, I just want to encourage people, don't give up. Just continue to, one of my therapists said, go home, look in the mirror, look in your own eyes and say, I love you. I love you. I love you. I couldn't do it. It took me years to be able to look in my own eyes. I just had to look away because it wasn't true. But, if you can persist and find a way to persist, I don't know, it works. Your whole life will be transformed.
I love that. That's so powerful. I'm just looking at the time.
I know we went over.
Which I'm happy with. And interestingly, it's 11744, and 117 is my dad's number, and that's so it's become my number, and that's very very meaningful to me. But this has been fascinating. Does anybody have any other questions before we go? I've been bringing the comments on the screen. I know I haven't been reading them all, but it didn't seem like it seemed like our conversation was moving forward. And so, but anyway, everybody has been amazing. And I want to thank you all for being here. Thank you all for your beautiful comments, Heather and Therese and Linda and Kimmy. And I just love you all. You're amazing. And
Thanks for coming, you all.
Linda Ernest, thank you so much, everybody. And everybody, if you're watching on the replay, welcome. Thank you for being here. And if you have any questions or comments, feel free to share them below. You know, I feel like sharing about being happy and having the intention of living a high vibrational life is not spiritual bypassing. That is, I don't
No. And I hope you don't think I meant that.
No, I don't. I want other people to know it because I feel like, and maybe it's me judging me. Okay. That could be too. But I feel like sometimes, so I'm just sharing what I feel drawn to share. But that's because I know that I don't spend 24/7 being super happy. And anybody's really close to me knows some of my struggles with that, right? Like Kimmy, right?
Well, you're a human being.
Right?
And there's suffering in the world. We feel it. We have our own issues that we're dealing with, but that doesn't mean we can't be high vibration.
Exactly. We can choose. And all these things, we choose how we're going to let it affect us or not, whether we're going to react or whether we're going to create and just be and sit with something, and just, so these are all lessons. And so I think we're both in total agreement that we do need to be aware of the things that were blocking us, so that they're not blocking us, so we can get past them and transmute them and move forward, right? But that just be who you are. Don't let anybody tell you there's a certain way to do it or not to do it, because that's a dogma, right? Then you're back in the church again if you listen, and that's okay too. If that's where you are.
We're talking about freedom here, freedom to be on your own journey.
Yes.
And to understand that the kingdom of God is within you, that the knowledge of everything that you need to know is within you.
That is beautiful. Let me just read. Linda says, thank you for that, Sarina. Slowly getting off of my medication, working on me and loving me. Thank you both. Enjoyed it so much. How are you?
Thank you, Linda. God bless you.
And Kimmy says, we love you. And Linda says, humbled and grateful for all this group and my cat who keeps moving my camera all night long. Oh my God. But I am very grateful for her. And I'm grateful for each and every one of you. I just want to, first of all, say thank you again to our beautiful audience, because you are our friends, our soul family. And I'm just grateful to be able to be here. And
thank you, C, for asking me.
I was just getting to you. And Sarina Michaels. Oh my God. Thank you so much for sharing the space with me and your wisdom and your life experience and all of it. You're just an amazing soul. And I always enjoy spending time with you, and I'm honored and feel very, I always feel a kinship. You know what I mean? Like I feel like we're,
me too.
That.
Yep.
So thank you for being my guest today.
Okay, everybody. Blessings.